What's up, everybody? It's Voodoo 51292. We're doing another game review today, and today's review is going to be the first one that's actually going to be covered under the new game rating guidelines and the changes that I've made to the game rating system. So if you haven't seen the video, go check it out. I made it today, December 21st of 2011. Please go watch that so that you understand the new rating system and what my score today is ultimately going to mean. So go over and check that out. But today we're going to be reviewing a game that kind of has stirred up some controversy, not necessarily with the game, but with this series. And it's a very popular series. It has a big fan base, but it's coming under some fire because of the way that the developers of the series of games, Ubisoft, has decided to, the direction they decided to go with this series. And the game we're talking about today is Assassin's Creed Revelations. And the reason I say that there's been some controversy is if you haven't followed Assassin's Creed, you're not exactly sure what's going on with those series of games. Assassin's Creed 1 was released in 2007, Assassin's Creed 2 was released in 2009, and then people figured, well, another 2 years there'll be Assassin's Creed 3. But that's not how it worked. Ubisoft decided to announce that, surprisingly, there would be another Assassin's Creed game the year following Assassin's Creed 2 in 2010 called Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Then they announced there would be another Assassin's Creed game in 2011, another year after, called Assassin's Creed Revelations. And Brotherhood and Revelations were to continue the story of Ezio Auditore, who is the assassin introduced in Assassin's Creed 2. And it would continue his line, his story. So not really Assassin's Creed 3 or 4, but kind of continuing the story of Assassin's Creed 2, and kind of made Assassin's Creed 2 into a trilogy of games. And people, are in a big uproar saying Ubisoft's cashing in. They don't really add anything to the story. They're not really moving the story along. They're just trying to make as many games as they can and get as much money out of people as they can make. And with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, people found out that that wasn't necessarily the case, that there were changes added to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. The plot actually did advance some in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and they added a big component. The multiplayer was added in Brotherhood, and so people realized that, hey, maybe they're actually trying, and they're actually trying to make good games. For me, surprisingly, I didn't actually complete, sorry for my dog barking, somebody just got home, but for me, I didn't actually complete Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, because for me it felt way too similar to Assassin's Creed 2, meaning that the environment was the same, they were still in Italy, the main character, Ezio, was still the same, and even the plot to some extent, the big picture plot was almost the same as in Assassin's Creed 2. And so, that was, to me, it was just like playing Assassin's Creed 2.1, so to speak, and I couldn't get through it because I had played so much of Assassin's Creed 2 and loved it, and I just felt like I was playing an expansion. So when Revelations was announced this year, I knew I'd be playing it because of my YouTube channel. I went into it kind of, cautiously, not really thinking I would enjoy it very much, to be honest with you, because I didn't like Brotherhood very much. But, so anyway, let's get into it. Let's talk about Revelations. And there's a lot to talk about as far as the plot's concerned. Basically, in the game, you are still Desmond Miles, who, if you don't know about Assassin's Creed, Desmond Miles is basically in modern day, he is a modern day part of a group called the Assassins, and he, originally the first game got captured by this group called Abstergo, who is supposed to be like a drug company, but is really just a cover for the modern day Templars, and basically the Assassins and Templars are ancient enemies, and basically the whole point was that they were going to put Desmond in this machine called the Animus, which allows him to relive memories from his ancestors who were ancient assassins, and they were trying to figure out the location of these ancient artifacts called Pieces of Eden, which are basically artifacts left by this race of creatures that make themselves known to you in Assassin's Creed 2, who basically were on the Earth, populated the Earth a long time ago, and along with humans, and witnessed an apocalypse, and they left these Pieces of Eden as powerful artifacts for people in the future to use to try and save the world. But of course, it's a big battle for power now between the Templars and the Assassins. And of course, by this point in the series, Desmond is away from the Templars, he's with fellow Assassins, but he's still in the Animus. And the problem is, is that the Animus is having a hard time determining his mind from Ezio's and Altair, who is actually the assassin you play as in Assassin's Creed 1. And Desmond's mind is starting to be torn apart because, you know, the Animus can't decipher the three, and are trying to put them all together into one person, which obviously would be bad news. So that's kind of the overarching plot, but still he's reliving Ezio's memories, trying to find the location of of a piece of Eden, or just trying to get any knowledge he can out of Ezio. So within Ezio's storyline, Ezio at this point is probably around 50, probably in his 50s. It's kind of hard to tell, but that's what it leads you to believe, in the 50s. And he is trying to open Altair's library, the first assassin. He discovers there's a library that Altair kept, and he discovers that there's actually 5 keys that he needs to get into this library, and they're called the Masyaf keys, and Masyaf is the location of the first game where the library is. And so it is Ezio's quest to find these 5 keys to get into Altair's library and learn the secrets that Altair has left. And by now, Ezio has been exposed to the creatures from before. He knows about the pieces of Eden, and so he is trying to find out what Altair knew about the piece of Eden that he found in the first game. And so that's kind of what's going on. And so for Ezio, he actually leaves Italy and goes to ancient Constantinople, the ancient Byzantine Empire, with the Ottomans and all of that good stuff, in search of these keys. And the new environment is actually very good. It's a very, very good environment. Probably my favorite environment from Assassin's Creed yet, I have to say. It's very colorful. All the people there, they're all dressed in these very colorful attire, and, you know, even though it is back to the Middle East like it was in Assassin's Creed 1, it's a completely different feel, because it's like the Ottoman Turks. Very colorful, great architecture, and it's a great city, and I loved playing in it. So that's a good thing for the game. But when he gets there, he also discovers that there are books that he needs to, ancient books left by Niccolo Polo, Marco Polo's father, that indicate where these 5 Masyaf keys are. So it's his job, obviously, to find these keys, to find the books, to find the keys, and of course, in Constantinople he meets a wider range of new characters that are good characters, that are developed well, that you feel a connection to, and he finds another character that helps him along with the books and everything, and so that's good. There's also another plot point that in Constantinople you've got the Sultan, or the Sultan as they say in the game, and he has obviously control over Constantinople, and he has his soldiers called the Janissaries, and then you also have the Templars who are in Constantinople, and it's along with the Assassins. There's an Assassins Guild there, so it's kind of a 3-way battle between the Templars, who are looking for the Masyaf keys, the Janissaries and the Sultan, who there's a conflict going on with them, between the Sultan has, you know, 2 grandsons, and he has to pick one over the other one, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there. They're fighting the Templars. The Assassins are just trying to do whatever's best, so they're fighting both sides. So it's crazy. The plot of the game, I have to say, from my opinion, is the best plot yet in an Assassin's Creed game, and I mean that sincerely. There's so many different facets going on with the plot of this game, so many different things happening at one time, that it's very fun, it's very interesting, and the new environment makes it great. So as far as the gameplay of the game, what can you expect? Well, you can pretty much expect the same kind of gameplay you had since Assassin's Creed 2, when they kind of changed the whole format from Assassin's Creed 1. You're going to have main story missions, you're going to have book missions where, you know, to find the Masyaf keys, and as far as the actual, you know, combat and things, you're going to be doing things like tailing people, breaking in and assassinating someone. There's a couple parts in the game where you actually have to go undercover, use disguises, and infiltrate areas, and it's very interesting. The gameplay is very solid. There's still the mechanic of capturing the Templar dens and liberating areas in the city and buying up shops and things like that to buy up the city and increase your revenue, increase the money you make in the city, which they had in Brotherhood, and they kind of rolled that over. You still have the missions where you can send assassins out to level up and call them in to help you in a fight or something like that, and rank them up and get money and experience. Well, no, your character doesn't get experience; they get experience. You get money from the assassin missions and things that they do. So that's still in the game. Now they did try to add some new elements to the game, which is good, of course, because at this point Assassin's Creed is, especially with 3 games in 3 years, it's getting a little older. It's getting a little old, but the things you could tell that they made too many games too quick, because now they're just grabbing for straws in some of the new gameplay elements that they have, and it's very confusing, some of the things. One of the things that they put a heavy emphasis on in the game is bomb crafting, and there's all sorts of different ingredients. There's shells, there's gunpowder, and then there's ingredients, and you can make 3 types of bombs. You can make lethal bombs, tactical bombs, or distraction bombs. And there's all kinds of stuff all kinds of ingredients. You pick the casing of the bomb, which makes it like either a frag, like it blows up late, or a sticky grenade, or things. You choose the gunpowder, which determines how far the radius of the explosion is, and then the ingredients, a lethal ingredient that kills, another ingredient that distracts. It's very complex, and they overload you with bomb ingredients. Like, you get bomb ingredients for doing everything. You get bomb ingredients for searching chests. You can buy bombs on the black market. You get bomb ingredients for cities that your assassins take over on those missions. You get bomb ingredients for. You get bomb ingredients for opening a crafting table. They give you bomb ingredients. So it's ridiculous, the overload of bombs in the game. And yes, for some missions, they are useful. They do help you. If you need to sneak past somebody and you throw a distraction bomb, it can help you, but they're not 100% necessary to use in the game. And it's like an overload of this thing that is just not 100% needed in the gameplay. It's useful at times, it can be helpful at times, but it's not a major part of the gameplay. I rarely use them, and it's just an overload of bomb stuff, and you're like, give me a break, no one needs to make this many bombs, and it's kind of crazy. So that's in there. Another thing that they decided to put in there are tower defense mini games, and if you don't know, basically tower defense games are basically real-time strategy games where, in this particular case, Templars attack your assassin den sometimes if your Templar awareness is high enough, and so you'll enter this mini game. There'll be hordes of enemies coming, and you have to do tower defense, where basically you can set barriers, in the street. You can place assassins strategically on rooftops that will shoot down and fight the opponent. You can use a cannon blast to hit them. It's like a real-time strategy mini game, and placing things and all costs morale, which you get by how many enemies your assassins and all kill. You get morale points, and that allows you to put more barriers in the ground or things like that. And the point is you're not supposed to let the Templar army get to your den base and destroy it. And if you do it successfully, you get some money. You get some. The biggest part of it is that your assassins that you are teaching actually get experience, a pretty good amount of experience for doing it. And I think you actually do get bomb ingredients for doing it successfully. But the thing is if you don't do it successfully, there's no penalty. I mean, you don't get those things, but all you have to do at that point is it turns basically into another Templar den, and basically all you have to do is go and kill the Templar leader. Once you do that, you win the den back to the assassins. So it's not really like there's a big penalty for not being successful on the tower defense games. And that plays into another gameplay element with your assassins that you're training. You can actually, if you rank them up high enough, you can actually assign them to your dens, and once they're assigned to the dens and become master assassins, they can no longer be captured or attacked by the Templar army. But a couple of things you can tell, they just don't fit in with the Assassin's Creed game. The tower defense games don't fit in at all. The bomb crafting at least fits into the game, but it's overdone, and it doesn't need to be as overbearing as it is. The last kind of new thing that they added, there's collectibles in this game, and you'll remember in the previous game there were collectibles like feathers in 2, flags in Brotherhood. This one, it's animus data fragments, and if you collect a certain number, as you collect them, you unlock Desmond memories, and there's 5 Desmond memories that you can actually do. And as you play these levels, they actually give you Desmond's backstory about who he was as a kid, who he was growing up, you know, how he got to where he is, talks about his family and things, which is all very interesting stuff. Here's the problem, okay? Each one of these stages is a first-person platformer slash puzzler stage, where basically you have to work your way through, you know, and platform while you have the ability to place blocks, and you know, you can place them over, you know, chasms and things. And some stages there's stuff that goes across the screen that will instantly kill you if you touch it, and some parts will drag you toward the floor where you die, you know, or move you to the wall where you'll die, and you have to place blocks and move quickly. But it's a first-person platforming element. It's very frustrating. There's a reason that they don't make first-person platformers, really. It's because it's horrible. Because you can't tell where you are. You can't tell how close to an edge you are or how far you are. You can't judge jumps correctly. And all through these games, you keep falling off and dying. You keep misjudging stuff and dying. And it's very, very frustrating. And it has nothing to do with the gameplay of Assassin's Creed. And you're like, dude, why do I have to do this? And the bad part is that you have to do these if you want to hear Desmond's backstory, which you're going to want to do. I only did the first 2 because I couldn't take it anymore, but I actually looked up the other 3 to listen to Desmond's backstory. It's actually very interesting, but you won't get that backstory unless you do these stupid first-person platforming levels, and it's very, very, very annoying. Very puzzling that they put that in the game. So that's basically your gameplay for Assassin's Creed Revelations, and you know, a lot of things that they kept, some new things that they added that really don't add too much to the gameplay, honestly, but the story is very, very good. It's very riveting. The plot, you know, pounds, and once you know, you keep wanting to play more to figure out what happens with all these different plot lines that are going on. And another thing that's interesting about the gameplay is actually when you find these Masyaf keys, each one contains a memory from Altair, the original assassin. And after you find each Masyaf key, you actually get to go back in time and play as Altair again and learn what ultimately happens to Altair. Yes, the game explains to you what happens to Altair after the end of Assassin's Creed 1, where you'll remember that he killed Al-Mualim, his leader, and got the Apple of Eden, which basically showed him a map of where all the other apples were. And then it kind of ended. You didn't know what happened to Altair. In this game, after each key, you get to go back and play a sequence as Altair and learn about what happened. And it's very, very interesting. So you get a definitive conclusion to the story of Altair, and that's really awesome. And also, by the end of the game, of course, you get pretty much the conclusion of Ezio's story as well. You pretty much, you know, learn what happens to him and ultimately the end of his storyline as well. So you get closure for Altair and Ezio, and it's really good that you're able to get that closure, and you know, it definitely shows that Ubisoft is moving on now to something new, to Assassin's Creed 3 hopefully, and we probably won't see Altair or Ezio in another game. We definitely won't see Altair, and I'm pretty sure we definitely will not see Ezio either. So, you know, good good job by them, I think, of wrapping up those 2 assassin storylines, especially going back for Altair, because a lot of people don't, you know, are curious and don't know what happened to him after the end of Assassin's Creed 1. So that's basically the gameplay. Now, what are the things about it that I did like and I didn't like? Well, I already touched on some of the things I did like. The new environment, Constantinople, beautiful city. You actually, at some point in the game, leave Constantinople for a short time and go to another area, which is also very interesting. So the new environment is an A+. The plot, like I said, is also an A+. Very good plot. Wraps up a lot of things as far as the Ezio and Altair things. The Desmond storyline is still very confusing. It does reveal some things to you, and it definitely sets it up for the next game. You'll know, okay, where the next game is going, what you need to do for the next game. But there's still plot holes in the Desmond story that don't make any sense. They never explain to you what happened at the end of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and minor spoiler alert. Actually, major spoiler alert, I guess, if you haven't played Brotherhood, but you probably shouldn't be watching this video if you didn't. When Desmond is overtaken by these beings and is forced to kill Lucy, and they never explain it, and Assassin's Creed Revelations never explains it. You don't know what happened there, what the real deal was, which kind of sucks. So his storyline is still very confusing, but the other two, Ezio and Altair, are wrapped up nicely. So, I did like the plot. I thought it was, like I said, the best plot in Assassin's Creed so far. I did at least like the attempt at putting new gameplay elements, even though they were kind of weird and didn't fit very well. But the things that I didn't like. At this point, you know, it is getting a little repetitive, the Assassin's Creed kind of, you know, gameplay. It's still very good gameplay, but it is getting a little repetitive at this point, and I think it's a good thing that Ezio that they wrap up the story. Even though I feel in this game that you get closer and more personal with Ezio than you did in the previous two games. You get to see a different side of Ezio that you may not have been able to see before. You understand a lot more about his character in this game, I think, than you did in previous games, and I really enjoyed that. But I think it's a good thing that they're moving on. The controls. The controls are the exact same that they were from Assassin's Creed 1 and have been. They're okay. They're decent, but they're not perfect. And there are parts in this game that will expect you to be able to move fluidly with the controls, and the controls just don't lend themselves to that. It's a very complicated control scheme. And there will be times where you'll be climbing up a building and you will jump headfirst off of the building on accident. You didn't mean to do it, and die or mess up whatever mission you're doing. Or you'll be trying to run away from guards and you'll jump the wrong way, or you know, your character will start climbing, Ezio will start climbing a wall when you didn't tell him to, and that lets who's ever chasing you catch up to you. So really annoying. The controls, sometimes it makes you fail the full synchronization, which is basically for each mission. There's a special challenge that if you complete the challenge, you get 100% synchronization, and that goes towards, you know, beating the game 100%. And some of them are like, don't fall in the water, you know, platform across this, don't fall in the water. Well, sometimes the controls will screw you, and you'll screw up the controls, and you'll jump in the water, and you lose full sync, and you're like, man, come on. So, you know, it's frustrating. There are bugs in the campaign. It's buggy sometimes. Some of the missions are very buggy. There was one mission I know I was tailing somebody, and they walked up and turned a corner. So I walked up, obviously, to hide behind the corner and continue to tail them. The game made the NPC turn around and backtrack the way he came, and he walked right into me and saw me, and I failed the mission. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? How? He's supposed to keep going, obviously. Like, some of the things were just bugged to the point where, like, originally I couldn't do something at all. Like, I couldn't do it. And then the next time it reloaded, I was able to do it perfectly fine. And it was like, you know, what was supposed to happen the first time happened the second time. It was bugged out the first time, and I couldn't do it. Like the guy backtracking, for instance. It was like, what was that about? You know, so it is buggy at times. Like, some of the missions are pretty buggy. Usually it doesn't stay like that. Usually if you fail to sync and it reloads, usually it'll reload and everything will be fine. But it is minor annoyances. But other than that, I thought it was a good campaign. I thought it was actually a very good campaign. I was pleasantly surprised by the campaign of Assassin's Creed Revelations. I didn't think I was going to like it much. I played it and my mind was changed. I actually really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think one of my favorite plots from Assassin's Creed, but the game is not perfect, obviously. There's bugs, there's control issues sometimes. Some of the things are getting repetitive at this point with the Assassin's Creed story and the gameplay. But it doesn't mean that it's not a very good game. So that's just the single-player campaign. There's also multiplayer. with Assassin's Creed Revelations. And this multiplayer was introduced in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. And I liked it a lot when I played it. Basically, there's a bunch of different game modes. That's one thing they did in the multiplayer of this game, is they added a bunch of new game modes from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. But the basic gameplay of each of these game modes is that you're hunting someone, and someone is hunting you. And the whole point is that you're supposed to kill the person that you're hunting while, not giving yourself away. Because actually what happens is everybody's their own individual character, and then when you start the match, the computer spawns a whole bunch of NPCs that look like every person's character, and it's just general traffic walking around. And so the whole point is to try to blend in and look like a computer character to not give yourself away to your enemy while finding and killing your target. And the stealthier you are when you kill your target, the more points you accumulate. And basically, if you run in and charge in, you give yourself away as the pursuer. The person that you're after can run away, can evade you, and if they do that successfully, they get points. Also, if they know that you're pursuing them, there's ways to stun them, where basically you turn around and punch them right in the face, and you get like 200 points for it, and they lose their contract on you. There's a new addition to the gameplay called Honorable Death, which basically means that in Brotherhood it was either you die or you stun the person. In this one, it's if somebody walks up to you and basically you hit stun at the same time they hit assassinate, you punch them in the face, but they're able to recover and kill you anyway. But what happens is you actually get points for it, and they actually lose points on their kill because you saw them and hit them. Also, you can actually finish your kills now, and that was a big complaint in Brotherhood, was like, well, it's not fair because you can have multiple targets chasing one person, and if somebody else kills your target before you can, you get no points. Well, in this game, if somebody else does it, if you're fast enough, you can run up to the dead body and kick them in the face when they're dead, and it gives you like 50 points. So it's like, giving you a little something even though that somebody else stole your kill. And it sounds like fun. And when Brotherhood came out, it was a ton of fun. But something happened later in Brotherhood, and now it's all over Revelations with the gameplay. And the fact is that people, it's a good concept, it's a fun concept, and the game can be very enjoyable at times, playing the multiplayer. The problem is, people are stupid, and people have ruined what is supposed to be and what could be a very fun multiplayer. And here's what I mean. Like I said, it's supposed to be stealth-based, whereas you get a ton of points for killing somebody if you're hidden or sneaky about it and they don't detect you. And the point is you're supposed to remain, you're supposed to be, indiscreet. You're supposed to be discreet. You're supposed to act like the computer characters so that the other player doesn't know which player you are, and therefore they may kill the wrong person, or it delays them long enough for you to stun them or whatever. But this is how people play this game. People run around the map now, don't try to be stealthy, don't try to hide themselves. They run all over the map, they climb all over buildings, all over the rooftops, and they just fight with one another. They don't try to hide, they don't try to sneak up on anybody, they don't try to really play the game the way it was intended to be played. They just run around on the rooftops. If they see their target, instead of trying to sneak up to the target and assassinate them well and get a bunch of points, they'll just charge headfirst into the target and kill them, and they only get like 100 points for their kill. And it's really stupid. And the problem is that it's a double-edged sword, because you'll get targets, you'll be spawned targets that will be running all over the rooftops, and if you go up there and chase after them, obviously you're going to give yourself away. If you're climbing on the rooftops, obviously they know that you're a human character. And so if you get the kill, it'll be a very low number of points because you'll give yourself away. Usually the people you're trying to kill are sprinting, so you'll have to sprint after them, and if you do that, you lose a bunch of points. So usually the kills that you get will be very low quality kills. Plus when you do that, you give yourself away to your attacker as a human character. So there's a double-edged sword. And you might think, what does it matter what the other players do? But that's why. Because if you want to kill your target, you have to also climb all over the rooftops, sprint after them, and you get low points for your kills, and you give your... Right, I apologize, my camera ran out of memory, so I'm making a second part, but this will be edited when you see it back to back. So, so yeah, you give yourself away as a target as well, and so it's super annoying. And unfortunately, almost everybody plays like this. And usually in the game mode Wanted, what happens is that you have a compass, and it'll light up and basically show you where your enemy is. It doesn't point them out to you, it just shows you the general area of where they are. But I was playing a game mode today called Deathmatch, which basically eliminates the compass. You don't have the compass, you play in smaller, confined spaces, and the only indication you have is that they show you a picture of your target, and when they're in your line of vision, the border of the picture will light up. But that's the only indication you have. The compass shows you, if they're down, up, how close you are to them. This game mode doesn't tell you that. And so you would think, if you're playing the game, that the point of it would be to be very, very low-key, to not give yourself away, because in the game mode it's very difficult to tell who is a computer character, who is not, because you don't have that compass basically steering you to the area that they're in. You would think that that's how it would be played. Unfortunately, that's not how people play it. Like I said, the last match I played, and of course all this is up for you to see, this is the last video I had in multiplayer, part 8. The entire round, all of the human characters would just go up to the top, were just on the rooftops, just fighting with one another. That's exactly what would happen. They would all go up there, this one would kill this one would jump and kill this one would kill this one, and then this one would stun that one. And then they'd all respawn, they'd all go back up to the rooftops, and they would kill, kill, kill. It was so stupid, because they weren't even trying to play the game. I mean, why would you play an Assassin's Creed multiplayer game if you don't want to be stealthy and you don't want to try to play the game properly? And it's so frustrating for me, who's actually trying to play the game the way that the developers want it, but I can't, because for me to kill anyone, I have to go up on the rooftop and act just like everybody else in order to do it. And it's stupid, it's frustrating, and it ruins the game, unfortunately. And the developers have a big blunder here, because you're supposed to get very low points for kills where you just run up to somebody and stab them, give yourself away, and most of the time it's true, but there's some instances where you'll do that, and you'll get massive points for the kill, and you're like, what is going on? There was a couple of times where people would run up to me, and when they give it away, when they give themselves away, like all these people do, a red arrow appears over their head, so you know that's your pursuer. They'll do that, they'll give themselves away, so I see them, they'll run up to me and stab me, and they get like 500 points for their kill, and I'm like, why did they get 500 points for the kill? Even for sneaky kills, you usually only get around 250 to 350, they get 500. They give random bonuses, things called like the variety bonus and things, which I don't even know how you get, but they get those kind of bonuses. So there's not even a penalty for doing that. They'll run up and stab you, and they'll still get 500 points. There was a couple times where I did the same thing, because again, I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to kill my target, I had to run after them, and I did. I knew it was a horrible kill, but I still got like 450 points for the kill, and I'm like, this is stupid and broken. It doesn't give a big enough penalty for cheap and bad kills. So, unfortunately, that's the deal with the multiplayer. And it is fun at times. I did have some fun playing it, but it's like you have to sit there and go from lobby to lobby to lobby to lobby in order to find a lobby that's at least bearable with people playing to have any fun. Because most of the time you'll get in a lobby where everybody will just be sprinting around, running all over the roofs, and making fools of themselves and really ruining the game. And it's just it's dumb, and it's not any fun, because it's not really what the game. If the game was played by people the way it was supposed to be played, it would be a hell of a lot of fun. One of the best multiplayer, one of the best multiplayer. Looking for the word. Forms. One of the best forms of multiplayer there is, because it's a ton of fun. But it's just like Call of Duty. People ruin that game by camping and laying prone and cheating and abusing the system, and if everybody played the game right, it probably would be a lot of fun. But it's the same thing here, and so unfortunately the blame this time falls with Ubisoft though, because they should have really ramped up the penalties for doing that kind of thing. I mean, if you get detected in an Assassin's Creed game, you should lose almost all of your points, and even if you get the kill, you should only get like 50 points for the kill, and then people who weren't completely mentally retarded would get the picture that, you know, there were some people that I was playing with that would get 12 kills, 11 kills, and they'd come in like last or second to last because the kills were worth so little that they didn't get it. And that's the way it should be, but unfortunately sometimes it's not the case. Unfortunately people get, I swear to God, there was one match, we had 8 people playing. The winner, the guy who came in first, got 12 kills. The guy who came in last also got 12 kills. And that's where the point disparity is. And like, sometimes when you run up and charge and kill somebody, you get low points like you're supposed to. But sometimes you'll do it and you'll get a bunch of points. And you're like, it doesn't make any sense. So, it's the old saying, fool me once, you know, shame on me, fool me twice, or sorry, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. It's the same kind of thing applies to Ubisoft. The first time, it was the player's problem. It was their fault because they abused the game, and it was their fault. The second time around, it's Ubisoft's fault because they didn't make the penalties, you know, severe enough to keep people away from playing it like that. And so it's their fault now because they knew people were abusing it on Brotherhood. They did nothing about it, and it's still being abused to this day on Revelations, and it's a real shame. But I've talked enough about this. If you want proof of this, go watch my I only have 8 parts of multiplayer right now. I'll probably try to play more later. But today I can only play 8 parts because I got so frustrated with it that I couldn't take it anymore. So at least go watch those and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, alright, really long game review. Let's get down to the score of this game. Alright, as I said, the single player, very good. One of the best plots I've had in an Assassin's Creed game. A very good new environment. Good endings to Ezio and Altair's story, and it sets it up well for Assassin's Creed 3 for Desmond's story. But there are problems with the control sometimes, with repetitive gameplay at times, with things added in the game that have nothing to do really with the gameplay, like the first-person platforming for Desmond Memories, tower defense games, all the bombs and stuff, that really look like Ubisoft's just reaching for straws at this point. And then the multiplayer, which is fun on occasion if you can get a lobby with people playing it correctly, but a majority of the time you will not, and therefore the multiplayer of the game kind of sucks when the other people abuse it, and the developers, Ubisoft, did nothing really to deter people from playing it that way. It's a real shame, because it could really be a good multiplayer. It's a lot of fun if you get a good lobby. If you could get a lobby of your friends, it'd be a ton of fun. If you can get a private match of, 4 or 5 of your friends together to play, it'd be a ton of fun if you all play it correctly. But if not, you have to put up with the idiots, and it ruins the game. So, bottom line, what is my score for Assassin's Creed Revelations? Well, going along with the brand new game rating scale, I'm going to give Assassin's Creed Revelations an 8.25 out of 10. Still thought it was an exceptional game. The single player alone sells the game. The multiplayer is a nice addition to have if you can have fun and tolerate the people on there. It's a nice addition to have, but the single player campaign sells the game by itself. Surprisingly good game. One of my favorites of the year, honestly, and I'm excited to see what they do when they move forward with Assassin's Creed 3 in the future. And pretty good game considering they only made it in a year. So 8.25 out of 10 for Assassin's Creed Revelations. If you're an Assassin's Creed fan, it's a must-buy. You must get this game if you're an Assassin's Creed fan. You'll enjoy it a lot, and you'll definitely enjoy the throwbacks to the original game, and you'll enjoy the plot resolution for those 2 assassins, alright? So I'm Voodoo51292. Thanks for sticking with me through this very long game review, but I had a lot to say to help you guys make your decision on the game, let you know what you're in for, and I will see you next time with another game review. And until then, see you later.